Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining me. Today is September 22nd, 2022, and I am Angela James, live with you for the 3 at 3. 3 at 3 is something that I do every other week, answering questions from anybody who wants to ask questions about publishing, writing, editing, whatever you want to ask questions about the publishing industry. I will answer to the best of my ability, or I will let you know that I don't know the answer because I don't make answers up. Today, we have 3 questions that run across different areas of writing. So I'm excited to dive into those, and I'm just going to get right to it. The first question is, how important is the launch to a book's success? Is it possible to completely screw it up, but still later get it noticed and lots of sales over a long period of time? Yes, it is completely possible to have a successful book without having a successful launch period. In fact, in my opinion, so many authors place so much importance on the first day of book release and the first week of book release, that they often forget to concentrate on the long tail. So, one of the things that you will hear people say quite often in publishing is that backlist is very important. And they wouldn't say that if you couldn't have a successful book after launch. So, while it is important to have a good launch and get the book out there and let people know that it's for sale, the end of your book's life doesn't end a week after the book releases. The book's life is actually a long life. It's what we call a long tail. Um, and that means that it's important to keep building that backlist because readers are going to keep coming to it. They're going to keep buying it as they discover you with a newer book. They're going to go to your backlist and buy those books. Also, we have seen authors hit the New York Times or USA Today, Wall Street Journal bestseller lists with books that have been out for years. So I think Ruby Dixon is a good example of that. She hit the New York Times well after the first book was released. I know Lauren Dane has hit the New York Times after a book was released. JC Burton has hit the New York Times with books after they were, well after they were released. So it is possible. It is possible for a book to have great success long after that first week. So don't put all of your like eggs in the launch bucket. Don't be like, "Oh, I didn't have a great launch, so nobody wants to read this book." That's not true. Also, if you are a first-time author, if you're somebody who has just published and it's your first book, it's especially not true because people don't know yet to pay attention to your launches. So for you, launches aren't probably going to be as important as that ongoing marketing, as that building that list, building the readership, letting them know that you're there. And those early books are going to become your backlist. And that's what readers are going to go back to as they discover you. So please don't think the only significant success that you can have is at launch because that's just not true. There's so much other opportunity for books. There's opportunity maybe if you're doing different formats at different times because you're self-publishing and you can only do digital before you put money into print, before you put money into audio. So again, you're going to revitalize other formats as you publish new formats, or you're going to revitalize book one in a series when you publish book two. So there's so much opportunity for books beyond launch that launch is definitely not the only way or the only thing for you to think of. Question number 2. I'm stuck with my writing before I even really get started. I have 2 first chapters for 2 different books, and I am thinking of 2 others. I want to do NaNoWriMo this year, but can't decide which to pick. I know this is partly procrastination to put off actually writing more than 1 chapter and getting stuck, but do you have any tips on choosing which project to work on? This is a pretty common issue to have. A lot of people, sometimes, especially when they're getting started, have problems to choosing which project. So here's a few of my best tips for choosing which project to work on. One is, which one do you have the most like robust idea of? Which one, maybe you're not a plotter, but even if you're not a plotter, which book can you say, okay, here's what happens, here's what happens, here's what happens. So you're not going to get stuck in the writing after the second chapter because you have no idea. Which book are you most excited about writing? Which one most appeals to you? Which one do you feel most passionate about? Especially for somebody who hasn't gotten to the end, like who hasn't finished a book, I always recommend writing the book that you are most passionate about. Don't worry about anything else right now. Just worry about figuring out if you can get to the end of a book. Which one feels most kind of doable? Like, is there one that feels really heavy with world building and really dense characterization and complicated plots? Maybe that's not the one that you want to dive into right now because that feels too overwhelming. Maybe you want to go with a slightly simpler project, something that's a little bit more straightforward. So, again, you can get that experience of getting to the end. Do you know what your publishing goals are or what success looks like for you? Like if you haven't thought about what you want out of your publishing career, well, if you're questioning which project to write, now might be a good time to ask yourself that question, because then you can figure out which of those projects is most likely to get you to that point, to get you to those goals, to get you to success and things like that. And then maybe it's important to you that you're writing something that's super marketable or that fans really want. Okay, well, which idea that you have is the most marketable? What's most on trend right now? I'm not saying that's what you have to write. I'm saying that might be important to you. And so a factor of consideration for you. So those are just a few things to think about when you're thinking about what project to get started. I do think for NaNoWriMo, it's best to stick to one project unless you're an experienced author or an experienced writer, somebody who's used to juggling projects. Nano is fantastic. And for those of you who don't know what NaNoWriMo is, it's National November Writing Month. I think I got that right. And it's a month-long project where you write every day to hit 50,000 words, and that's how you win NaNoWriMo. So NaNoWriMo is fantastic for helping you get to the end because it encourages you to reduce writing every day to get that word count down. Now, it's not going to work for everybody. And even if you participate in Nano, you may need to modify your goal because 50,000 words in a month isn't doable for you. But if you are having issues getting to the end of a project, Nano is a great one. But definitely do, as you said, pick one project. Don't do two, don't do four. Pick one and really focus on getting into the habit of working on that one and getting to the end. All right, hopefully that answered your question. And of course, you can comment and let me know if you have any follow-up questions. And then the last question is, how do you keep going after getting knocked down, having disappointing sales, or hearing no from queries? So basically, how do you keep going after a rejection, maybe after a book didn't do as well as you thought it was going to do? Well, the first thing is to remember that writing is a business, and running a business means that there are going to be things that are maybe not failures, but don't go the way that you want them to. My business is a great example. I do different launches, I sell different products, I do different services, and different times of year do better for me. Different projects do better for me. Better course. Some courses are more popular, some services are more popular, and I can depend on them. But one of the things to know about continuing to write, keep writing and publishing, continuing to query if traditional publishing is your dream, continuing to just keep going when something just seems like it didn't go well, you got a bad review, somebody said something negative to you. Sometimes I get emails where people just are like, don't like me, don't like what I had to say. And, that can feel really discouraging, just like a negative review. And so I'm going to tell you what I do and hope that it works for you. And that is I keep going. I keep creating in my business. I keep selling. I keep reminding myself of what I have accomplished, what the wins are. I pay attention to who I'm helping. Today I had a meeting with somebody and they said that I have a really great way of giving feedback and being very firm, but also really kind and understanding and targeting in for the person, and not making things too generic. And I need to internalize that feedback and that win rather than internalizing the things that didn't go well. So maybe I've had a product that didn't sell as well as I wanted it to go, or a launch that just felt really like a struggle. I can't internalize those things. I have to look at them and go, okay, well, what didn't go well? What didn't work? What can I do different next time? And then just keep moving forward. I keep creating. I always, if you've heard me say this, I'm an idea creator. I'm an idea monster. So there's always new ideas in my business. So I find the next thing to get excited about. And that's how I want it to work for you as well as an author. I want you to, figure out what brings you joy in the writing, what brings you joy in the publishing. Remind yourself of good feedback that you've gotten, the readers that you do have, the people who've said great things about your writing. Now, I'm not talking about doing toxic positivity, because toxic positivity doesn't do anybody any good. And toxic positivity is when we kind of ignore critical feedback that's important or vital to our business to keep us growing, and just keep going on a path without course corrections or without internalizing change. So I'm not talking about toxic positivity, but I am talking about not just internalizing the negative things, but internalizing the positives as well. So if you fail, if you get rejected, if something doesn't go well, that's a learning opportunity. And I know it sounds trite to say it like that, but look, I run a business. I'm using those. Okay, what didn't go well? And that's what you need to do as well. Okay, I got 50 rejections. Did I get any feedback that I can use to course correct or do something different? If I'm going to read my reviews and look at the negative reviews, is there anything that stands out as being a theme among the negative reviews that I can take into consideration for next time? And then some things you do just disregard. So when you're feeling discouraged, when you've gotten rejections, when you've gotten critical feedback, you need to figure out what's going to work for you. Is it going to be creating more? Is it going to be keep going? Is it going to be a pivot? Is it going to be a course correction? Is it going to be internalizing the positive instead of the negative? So that's my advice for what you do when you're just feeling knocked down, and remembering that it happens to all of us. Even the authors who you think are having like these amazing careers and things are going really, really well and everybody loves them, there's probably things that you are not seeing behind the scenes, and they have their own struggles. So there is no perfect career. There is no career where everything is roses. It's just a matter of figuring out what you're going to do when things aren't working and how you're going to move forward from there. Okay, those are the 3 questions today. As a reminder, we will be back again in 2 weeks for the next 3 at 3, and you can submit your questions for that. I think we're doing it the week of October 6th when I come back from Alaska. So make sure that you submit your questions, because I need questions to answer in order to keep these going. And I do love answering the questions, and I love seeing what you're coming up with and what you need help with. So definitely get your questions in. If you have any questions or comments, you can drop them in the comments and whatever platform you're watching. You can also email me at angela@angelajames.co, or you can get me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. You can message me on those platforms as well. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next time. In the meantime, remember, you got this. I believe in you.